Hey guys, welcome to another video. Sorry I haven't uploaded in a while. I had been working on my game that I released, so I'll put it in the description, and I've been a little bit busy with commissions. But in today's video we're going to be making an admin panel. It'll have stuff like kick, ban, server lock, announcements, all that stuff. So let's get started. In this video we're just going to focus on the kick button and the server lock button. We'll do the rest in a future video. So let's start off by making our UI. And start a GUI, I'm going to put a screen GUI, and in the screen GUI I'm going to put a frame. This can be the main UI frame. You can design it how you like. I'm going to put a UI corner. Make it a little bit more darker color. Maybe I'll add like a text at the top just to indicate this is the admin panel. You can do whatever you'd like with this. Just gonna do something like this. If that would be good. I'm just gonna do. Alright. So we're just gonna add a nice little top bar to indicate this is an admin panel and nothing else. So this is gonna be my base frame. Make sure you rename your stuff. It's good to keep an organized workspace because then it'll be easier for you to find things and for you to search. Because if you have 100 frames and you search up frame, it's not really gonna narrow it down. So I'm gonna name this the main UI. This will be the panel, and then this label is going to be top bar. So now we got our basic admin panel UI. The first thing we should do is we should set up I'm going to add a button. I'm going to put this button up here. This button is going to bring us to our kick menu. We're going to make menus, so there's going to be a page for kick where it'll be specifically stuff that you have to input to kick the player, like a reason and their username and whatnot. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to design this button a little bit. I'm going to put a UI corner. I'm going to change this to 5. You can change the color of the button. I'm going to keep it a little bit lighter than perfectly dark. Obviously, if you already have your UI, you can skip ahead in the video. I might put a text on the screen telling you what time you can skip to if you already have your UI. I might not sure. It's all up to future me. So we got our kick button. I'm gonna rename this kick. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put another frame inside of the panel. I'm just gonna scale it up to this size. Just gonna make it transparent. Now I'm going to name it kick frame. So I'm gonna disable or make the kick button invisible. And actually something we can do is duplicate the kick frame. We can rename this to home. This is just going to be our home page, just so we can keep it a little bit more organized. But let's make this the full screen instead. So we can make this visible, but we can make our home page invisible. It'll just make it easier for us to script it. So now what we can do in our kick frame is we can set up a few main things. The first thing, we need a text box. This one will be for the player's username, so I'm going to rename this to username. Then we can add another text box. This one's going to be for the reason, because well, you can't exactly kick somebody just because you want to. Well, you can, but it's best to have a reason. And then we're going to add in a text button. This button is just going to kick the player. So we can go ahead and design our UI. Just gonna add a UI corner into all of this because it looks much cleaner. Just like this. I'm going to rename this to kick. I'm going to scale this up, change the text, get some style so it's not as basic. We can copy the kick button color and just apply it to the background of all of these. Just like so. I'm going to select the username and reason and just make it slightly lighter. I know this isn't a tutorial on how to make a nice looking UI, but we might as well, or I might as well show you my process of making a UI. So we're just going to type in username for the top bar, since this is going to be the player's username, and then for the reason I'm just going to make it say reason. Make sure to make the text white so it's easier to read. Just going to change this color. And finishing this page up, we can have our kick button. I'll add a return button just because we should be able to go back to the home page so we can pick a different menu. I'm just gonna put this button up here, and we can change this text to return just like so. Turn. So let's quickly script our buttons, like our kick button down here in the home page. So on the home page, hit the plus on the kick button in the home page, insert a local script. We're just going to name this visible. Now what we're going to do is script.parent.mouse button when clicked, connect function. So when mouse button 1 is clicked, or when this is clicked with mouse button 1, which is the left mouse button, what we're going to do is make a few variables. Local kick frame equals script.parent.parent.kickframe. The script's parent is the kick button, the kick button's parent is home, and the home button's parent is panel, and then kick frame is in the panel. So we're making into a variable, and we're just going to do kick frame.visible equals true. Now what we can do is local home frame equals script.parent.parent.parent.home frame, or just home. We're not going to do script.parent.parent because it's better to just check it through that method. Then we're going to do home frame.visible equals false. So that should be that part done. Now in our return button in our kick menu, let's hit the plus and let's insert a local script. Let's once again name this, let's just actually name this to set visible, and change the other script as well. Let's make our variables first this time. So local kick frame equals script.parent.parent.kickframe, or .kickframe. Script's parent is return, kickframe panel, and the kickframe. Local home frame equals script.parent.parent.parent.home. Then we can do script.parent.mouse button when clicked, connect function. Kickframe.visible equals false, home frame.visible equals true. So this should be our return and our kick page buttons done. Let's go ahead and give this a try before we actually script anything else. So if we hit return, it goes back, and if we hit kick, as you can see, we can go back and forth between the two pages. So that's very nice. Now I'm going to quickly scale everything so it's easier for me to see using a plugin. So now let's get to actually scripting our kick button. So the first thing we should do is go to replicated storage and insert a remote event. With this remote event, we can make sure it actually kicks the player and doesn't make the illusion that we kicked the player, because if we try to kick them on the client, it's not actually going to kick them from the server like we want to. So we're going to make sure to change remote event, and let's name this to kick, and then service script service. Let's insert a script, and let's just name this script handler. And in replicated storage, instead let's insert a folder, and let's just name this remote events, and let's put our kick remote inside of remote events. Now in our handler at the top, we're going to make a variable for the folder. So local remote events equals game.replicated storage wait for child remote events. We're going to do this because we want to make sure that remote events folder is there. Then what we can do is local kick equals game, or actually no, equals remote events wait for child kick. So we're waiting for the child kick to be present inside of remote events. And now what we can do is kick.onServerEvent connect function. So when this is fired, we're going to run whatever's in here. So we want to add a few parameters. Obviously the first one being the player, which is the player who it's firing from. Then it's the player to kick, so let's just name this PLR to kick. And then it's just going to be the reason. So reason. So we have a few parameters. Now what we're gonna do is game get service players, wait for child, and then we're gonna do player to kick, and then kick for the reason. So we're getting service players, and we're gonna wait for child, or we're gonna wait for a child with the name player to kick. Now we can add a toString, which makes sure this is a text and not some number. This is just to be a little bit safer. We can do the same thing with the reason, because it could bug out if we don't. So let's just go ahead and add this around the reason. So it's gonna kick the player with the name of player to kick parameter, and then it's gonna kick them with the reason and the reason parameter, which we will be setting in our kick button. So now let's close our handler. Let's go to our kick button inside of our kick frame, set the plus, insert a local script, and let's just name this kick user. So let's get our remote. Local remote equals game.replicate storage.remote events.kick. Let's actually just name this variable kick. Now let's do script.parent.mouse button when clicked connect function. So when the mouse button when it's clicked on the button, we're gonna do kick fire server. Now here's where we're gonna put our parameters. Our first parameter was player to kick, which we want to get the text of the username. Since the player is going to be able to type in these boxes, when they type in username, it's going to change the text of username. So we're going to do script.parent.parent.username.text. So it's like, let's say we type in my username, or let's just say we type in ABC in username, and we hit the kick button. It's going to fire this remote event to the server, inputting for these parameters. If we go to handler, player to kick is going to be replaced with the text of the username. So instead it's going to be trying to kick the player named ABC, and then we can do the same thing with reason, script.parent.parent.reason.text. It's going to replace reason with the player's reason to kick, so it's going to kick the player for that text. So let's go ahead and give this a try. Let's just let this load up. So we have our username, which will be my username. That's my username. And then let's just kick myself for you have been kicked as a test. Kick. You have been kicked as test. Well, I didn't write as a test, but as you can see, it kicks the player. And this should work for any player that you type the username in for, because we're using a remote. So this is our kick page. Now let's go ahead and add a server lock, and then we will continue on this panel in a future video. So what we can do is we can make our kick frame invisible. So let's just quickly select it and hit the visible tab. Now let's go to our home page. We can duplicate this and we can rename this to ServerLock. Let's make this invisible, or let's make our home frame invisible now, or visible. Let's copy our kick button. Let's go ahead and put it over here, and I'm just going to really quickly center these. So for our new kick button we just duplicated, I'm just going to name this ServerLock, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the text to ServerLock. In our set visible, what we can do is we can set a new variable for local ServerLock equals script.parent.parent.serverLock, and we can just change this true to false and do ServerLock.visible equals true. So now that we got that finished, we can go into our home button, we can make visible false, we can go to our ServerLock page and we can make this visible true. I'm just going to really quickly scale this down. We can remove this kick button, and we can duplicate this return button from our kick page and put it into ServerLock, so we already have that present. Except we might want to actually do another variable, so local ServerLock equals script.parent.parent.parent.serverLock, set true to false, and then just do ServerLock.visible equals false, and then home page actually stays true. So now that we have a return button, we're just going to make two buttons. One is ServerLock and one is unlock. So we're going to hit the plus and insert a button. This is going to be a button like this. We're gonna go ahead and design it however we'd like. I'm going to copy similar styles from my other buttons. We can go ahead and fill this up, put our nice font, and then let's just name this text lock. And then we can add another button, which will be the unlock button. I'm just going to make this button a little bit smaller, just like that. So one button we can name lock, and the other button we can name unlock, and obviously change the text. So since I won't be able to test this inside of the game, since I don't have another player, you will have to test it on yourself. So what we're gonna do in server storage, let's hit the plus and then let's insert a bool value and let's name this locked. So in our handler, we're gonna do game.players.playerAdded connect function. We're gonna pass the player parameter. So when the player is added to the game, or when they join the game, we're gonna attach this player tag to them that we can edit anything within them. So if game.serverStorage wait for child locked dot value equals true. So if locked value is equivalent to true, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do player kick this server is locked. So since we're setting this locked value to true, this is going to indicate the server is locked. So when the player joins, we're going to kick them for the server being locked. And if it's not locked, then we're just going to do nothing about it. Or we can just print not locked. Let's just change this to server is not locked. Oops, didn't mean to do that typing error. Now let's do another remote event. This remote event is going to be to change the actual locked value. So let's create a new remote in replicated storage in our remote events. Let's just name this lock. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a variable for it. So local lock equals remote events wait for child lock. Down here what we can do is lock.onServerEvent event connect function player and then locked. So this is the parameter. We're going to be setting this to true or false through our script, and what we're going to be doing is game.serverStorage wait for child locked dot value equals locked. So when we call this function, we're just going to be, or when we call this remote, we're going to be changing this parameter to true or false, and if it's false, we're going to set, this is going to be set to locked or unlocked, and then if it's true, it'll be set to locked. Now let's actually put this above all of our remotes, and let's just keep our remotes under this player added event, and let's close this script now. Now we can go to our lock button, we can insert a local script, we can just name this fire remote. Now we can call a remote local lock equals game.replicated storage dot remote events wait for child lock. Now we can do script.parent.mouse button will click connect function lock fire server, and since this is the lock button, we're going to set it to true. Now we can clone the script and put it in our unlock button, and we can change true to false. Now if we close this, we can go ahead and make our server lock frame invisible, and we can go to our home frame and make this visible. Now we can hit the play button and let this load up. As you can see, server is not locked. If we hit kick, our kick page pops up. If we hit server lock, this pops up. So if I hit lock and I go to the server with this button up here and I go to server storage, let's go to our locked value. As you can see, it is set to true, and then if I go back and I hit unlock and I return, it is set to false. So if I set it to true, anybody who joins is not going to be able to join since the server is locked. So this is how you make the basics of an admin panel. In a future video, we're going to be making restrictions so only specific users can have this panel, and we're going to be adding a few more options. So I hope this video helped you, and I hope you enjoyed. See ya.